Now to the next power-packed chat, a session which is a knowledge session, and the topic is decoding the science of Creatornomics. And we are in conversation with Siddhartha Laik, founder and editor-in-chief, IWMBuzz.com, joined by Sagar Gokhale, co-founder Qyuki, Abhimanyu Radhakrishnan, MD, Qyuki Digital Media. Over to you, Siddhartha.
Thank you so much, Sonu, for inviting us at India Web Fest Season 3. You have done a superb job throughout India Web Fest Season 3. This is a day 2 on 16th of December. And we have very, very honored guests from Qyuki Digital today. First of all, Sagar sir, Abhi sir, thank you so much for all the support that you keep extending to IWMBuzz.com Media Network. I welcome Sagar Gokhale, co-founder Qyuki, and Abhimanyu Radhakrishnan sir, MD Qyuki Digital Media, to talk on a very interesting topic called Creatornomics. So don't get baffled by the term. This is a new age content creation ecosystem we are talking about. And Sagar sir, Abhi sir, welcome to India Web Fest.
Hey, thanks a lot, Siddharth, for calling us here and our long-term association. I think we've been big fans of your work and you've been doing some amazing work, and thanks for doing this for the entire community. Abhi?
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Siddharth. IWMBuzz continues to be a great source of news for the entire industry. And, we are obviously logging on a daily basis to check out what's happening. And I'm glad we could be a part of WebFest, and good to see it growing every year.
Thank you so much. The honor is absolutely ours, sir. So since we are having the conversation, I will ask the first question to you, then I can go to Sagar, sir. So Qyuki has been around so many years in the business. They have impacted some great work. They've done some great work over the years. So how do you see this ecosystem shaping up, Abhi, sir?
Well, I think, the way the creator economy has come up, and even the fact that we saw this before the term existed in the form it does, validates the belief that Samir Bangara and the rest of the team had over almost a decade prior, that this is the direction in which the internet and the web economy is going to grow. It's going to be decentralized, it's going to be bottom up, and these things take time, right? With the big technological shifts, there's a saying that you always tend to overestimate it in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. So in the short term, everybody, when YouTube came back in 2010, 2011, people thought, oh, television is dead, everything is going to go on YouTube. And then you realized with those kind of data connections and fewer internet users, you weren't really going to wipe it out. And then everybody thought, oh, okay, that was just a fad and it's not actually going to change anything. But in the long run, I think we've all seen what smartphones, fast data, and great platforms are able to do for the content economy. So it was a long view on how the tech-based media ecosystem would evolve. It took a few years for it to gather steam. It took a while for all the infrastructure to be in place to let that boom happen. But as expected, once the momentum started, it was impossible to stop that from happening. And that's where we find ourselves now. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey, and I'm glad that we called it early. Sagar, you'd agree, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Sagar sir has a smile on his face. So
yeah, I think I can't agree more with Abhimanyu, and I think this is how we're going to play this role. Abhi is going to talk about the macro trend, where I kind of walk you through the micro stuff. And I think, the interesting part is we've been around for the last more than close to 8 odd years, 8 to 9 years. And we've really seen the journey move in a very interesting direction. It kind of started when we just started. It was, digital was a dumping ground for television, right? You would kind of do catch-up content on digital. From there, we saw the rise of creators, which is the part of the journey that we sort of came into, right? Creators like long format creators, musicians, bloggers, sort of really started taking off. That was really the I think between 2016 to about 2018 was really the time for you to be a creator on YouTube or any of these platforms. And I think now we are seeing from 18 to about 21, I think we're really seeing the birth of short format content, right? You could see, I mean, obviously TikTok was major sort of a mover in that space, right? And after TikTok, we've seen the emergence of a lot of Indian players, right? Whether it's Josh, Moj, MX
Absolutely.
Patak, which are really providing a platform for Indian creators. And then you obviously have Instagram Reels, and you've got YouTube Shorts, which are also really doing well for creators. So I think now today a creator has a lot of options to do things, and short form is in a way the way to go. And I think the future trend of NFTs and this entire decentralized internet, what Abhimanyu just spoke about, is really the future. So I think we've really seen this sort of change in the ecosystem. I think we're really excited about what this brings us to.
Wonderful. So now that you have mentioned about NFT and you have pointed that out in the discussion, sir, how important is NFT for the creator ecosystem, you believe? Sagar, sir, if you can continue on that, please.
I think, I would leave the macro view to Abhi, but at a very sort of simple level, I think NFTs are going to change everything for creators, right? So this is not my business view, this is my personal view, right? As a creator today, I have the power to create something and go to my audience directly and maybe do a smart contract with them where they can buy that art, they can buy that song, they can buy any of that and take part in my success. I think this is the way most of the creators in the future, and like Abhi obviously pointed out, that you always overestimate what technology is going to bring to you today, and you kind of underestimate what will it do in the future. So this could be a bit of a long-term view, but I see all creators sort of going the NFT way, where they will be sort of putting their music out and fans will be coming and sort of paying for it and consuming this content and keeping some content which is really collectibles. And I think this is really going to supercharge the entire ecosystem. If you have got something to say, if you've got a great idea, this is the fastest way to kind of monetize that idea and make people a part of your success.
Wonderful. So I think the NFT thing is addressed, but I'll come to Abhi sir now and look at the macro side, like Sagar sir said. So how do you see the creator economics and idea behind it, sir? How do you see it's evolving? And if you can also touch upon the continuation of the NFT bit that Sagar sir said. So overall holistic view, sir.
At a macro level, I think the first thing that NFT has done, before we get deeper into why it's important for creators, is that it's till now, cryptocurrency, and I would say Bitcoin and some of the newer ones like Ethereum in particular, were, solutions looking for a problem. Of course, there's the whole, I would say the philosophical, political aspect of Bitcoin, which is, decentralized finance, take away the power from the Fed, all those things, which, often are big on the rhetoric, but don't actually translate into, okay, what can I do with that money? Until now, unfortunately, the answer was only drugs and guns, as many of the critics of cryptocurrency said. But for the first time, what has happened is that with NFTs, you have something inherently digital that you can buy with cryptocurrency without having to convert it back into the real world and deal with all sorts of tax and compliance and legal issues.
Yes.
It not only gives you brag value if you're one of the early guys, suppose you were early in Bitcoin. Yeah, you've got, say, let's say, $50-60 million worth of Bitcoin, but it's tricky where you would want to convert it into real money. So, how do you show, or how do you signal that you're a big whale in the crypto space? One way was, okay, let's buy all the most fancy art. So it's the old fashioned, what people did when they had too much money is that they would invest in art, they would invest in antiquities. But there was always a, question around legality of ownership. There were some stories last week also about how, a big collector was fined in the US and had to return a bunch of stuff, which was found to have been stolen from Indian and other Asian museums and temples and whatnot. So there's, that antiquities and collectible market at the upper end was always a little borderline suspect because there was no easy authentication of everything out there, right? So the first problem that this whole, crypto space solves is that, as the name suggests, it gives you that immutable way of verifying ownership. Now, where is that important? Traditionally, we've really struggled over the last 30-40 years, ever since music has become a real global worldwide industry, to enforce royalties, especially in countries which don't have very good legal and contract enforcement systems like India. You don't see an artist making one hit song and his next 3 generations able to live off it like you do in developed countries, right? Because collecting that royalty, enforcing it, these are all real world issues of how do you monetize your intellectual property in the long term. So I think the NFT plays very, very interesting, and musicians and artists got it immediately because they've been struggling with so many years to, maintain copyright in a way that doesn't withhold the work and deny it. Artists are always in this quandary that, hey, we want as many people as possible to listen to our music, but we want a way for them to be able to pay for it and not use it without permission. So the internet tried to give you some answers with the Napsters and all of the world in the early days, but the math just doesn't work out for artists. You are either depending on donations like Patreon, or just depending on the goodwill of your fans. So I think the beauty with NFT, which most people see, is that it solves a real problem, which is how do I perpetually get income or royalty from these assets I've created? How do I build a community around it? It's not, artists are not like traders, right? Crypto right now is associated with finance and speculators who want to turn a quick buck. Artists have a creative ego. They have a sense of belonging. They would actually leave money on the table if it feels that the work has been corrupted. So in that way, NFT is really interesting because it gives you a way of having some control over that ownership, even in the long term. Inserting some things in the smart contracts that only allow the work to be used in a certain way. But yet, it's out there. Everybody can take that. As they said, I can right click that JPEG and save it. Haha, you paid so much money for it. So yes, so the idea is that actually that's not a bug, that's a feature that you can expose it to the entire world, but the ownership only remains with one person, which can be verified on a blockchain. It's a bit of a subtle concept, but it'll take a while for everybody to understand it. The ideal situation for NFT is that nobody should know that they're buying an NFT when they actually buy one. So it should be, it'll eventually reach that point. Right now, it's at the geek and techie and early adopter stage. Today, if you ask some kid who's on YouTube, what is TCP/IP, and they'll, be clueless. They just know that they're firing up YouTube. So someday I see that even NFTs will move in that direction, that you just know that you bought a collectible, some technology is working seamlessly in the background, that's ensuring the artist gets paid in perpetuity. Good for him.
Wonderful. So very insightful, sir. But Qyuki has always done work and have tapped into opportunities, which has been always, looking into the future. So I want to ask Sagar, sir, that though it's early stage, a lot of conversations are happening, but I know that you work with creator, you work with merchandising models, different revenue models. So do you think that the revenue stream that was in the past, the traditional linear model, etc., and this NFTs coming in? So as a veteran, industry veteran, what do you think are the different revenue streams that are going to emerge for the creators?
Well, I think we've come a long way from the days of, only monetizing a creator of, programmatic ads on YouTube, right? I think the first phase really was just programmatic ads running on YouTube and you get dollars paid from YouTube. That was model number one. I think the next model that kind of came about was, brands started working with creators and started doing, interesting
sort of branded content model you talk about.
Yeah, the branded content, which was also, but couldn't scale really fast, right? Brands wanted a certain kind of quality. They engaged with the creators and sort of created a certain kind of content. That was really model number two, right? The model number three that we've seen, which is really scaled up right now in the short format days, is where, it's not really branded content, but it is really distribution of messages from brands, right? Especially in the pandemic, we saw a lot of brands engage directly with creators and, ask them to create content, which is not placed inside their content, but it's really them coming out and saying, hey, I've used this product and it's really nice, to buy it, go to this link and sort of see the product. And if you like it, please buy it, right? We've really seen a massive increase in this, especially due to short format content, right? We've seen a lot of this happening. Obviously, there's some really good creatives happening in the space for that also. I think the other side where we are seeing other forms of monetization clearly are creators are looking at launching their own products, which we've done in two successful launches. One is 2407 by Team 07, which is a deodorant range, which we have done really well with. I think it's been around for close to a year. And, we are logging very good sales, and it becomes very interesting for the creator because the creator is in charge of his own inventory, right? When he's going out on YouTube or he's going out on Instagram, pretty much he knows what he wants to, kind of sell, and he puts up a post and every post generates a certain number of sales. And I think that is great. We've also done the same with Madhura's recipe. She has her own brand of masalas. And I think this is really the way for, top creators to kind of monetize their content, where they look at launching their own products. I think this is a trend that we're seeing in a big way in India. I think it's going to catch up. The other way that people are right now monetizing, and this is the sort of final sort of stop, which I think is NFTs. It has not caught on in a big way yet. But I think creators will soon start, once we've got great regulation, everything is in place. I think creators will start sort of using NFTs as a medium to start monetizing their content.
So, Abhi sir, do you think, taking the conversation ahead from how Sagar sir has beautifully kind of charted out the journey, you think NFT is the future of creator commerce?
For a certain kind of creator whose audience is largely entirely digital. Just to take an example from what Sagar is saying, a Madhura's recipe, sure, she might launch the odd NFT purely as a collectible item, but her core product is always going to be something in the physical world, right? Yes. However good we get, it's going to be impossible to cook and eat virtual stuff to fill our bellies. So creators like her are going to go very strong, I think, in the commerce and direct-to-consumer brands, which are either co-branded or branded on their own. In the case of the masala, the creator herself has decided what the combination and the recipe and the taste should be. So there she's actually a domain expert. She's not just a brand ambassador endorsing a random product. It's very close to her heart. The message is that your food can taste good if you use this special kind of hand ground, homemade, no preservatives masala that I've put out. So creators like her, who, the audience and the use cases in the real world probably will, use NFTs more as as I said, a collector's item or a nice to have or part of the larger fan base offering. But people who live entirely in the digital world, like say gaming streamers, creators who give reviews of games, they're going to be creating their own worlds. In fact, they're already doing it, right? In games like Minecraft or Roblox, which a lot of audience plays. There are already developers who create their own worlds within these games and then charge special entry to the premium members of stuff within the games. Globally, there's this company called Axie Infinity, which has received a lot of funding, which is at the forefront of the play to earn movement, where the act of playing itself gives you a chance to earn that in-game currency issued by the game. But it's different from previous in-game currency because this time it's on a blockchain, and that blockchain is not necessarily controlled by the makers of that game. It's independent. It could be on the Ethereum blockchain, for example, or on the Solana blockchain. And there's just a token which you earn in the game, which is convertible into this real world currency. And I've heard of some crazy stories of 12 and 13-year-olds making $5,000-$6,000 a month just, trading and selling avatars or doing tasks in those games. So yes, this entire Web 3.0, as we are calling it, is going to be a huge source of income for digital first creators whose entire existence is in the digital world. And it will continue to be interesting for, what we call the real world creators who deal with the issues that are in our physical world, and will continue to monetize, as Sagar said, through things like branded content and through commerce and products.
So this thoughts on Web 3.0, it's a very interesting term that you coined. So I'll come to Sagar, sir, if you can continue.
Actually, I think this one, Web 3 is a term that you should go to Abhi with, right? Let him first explain it and then let it come.
So it's very interesting because I'm sure so many people are watching you and we are live streaming it on YouTube, and they want to know that what is this Web 3.0 and how would you be part of this wonderful journey? It's something like the metaverse that everyone is talking about. So how do you see the landscape evolving vis-a-vis the Indian market? I know we understand a lot of things that happen globally, but Indian market is still very at the nascent stage. So how do you see that we're going to play the catch-up game, or you're going to be the leaders in the space, Abhi sir?
Well, I would imagine that will depend a lot on the upcoming regulations that we're all itching to see. We are hearing lots of news leaks and random stories of, one day this will be banned, the other day they'll say, no, it'll be partially banned, who the regulator will be, all those things will happen. My sense is that there will be some sort of a legal and compliant way to go about it. So, I'll reserve my comments as far as India is concerned. It's a great opportunity to leapfrog a few generations of tech, especially now that people like China have banned it, because it's inherently very hard to control, right? China's entire internet boom has been a completely closed, as they say, a walled garden internet boom, closely controlled by the government. By definition, you cannot do this in the Web 3.0 construct. The term is being bandied about, of course, not just in Silicon Valley, but among tech circles all over the world, is an extension of saying that, okay, if what happened with what we today call the FANG pack, right? Facebook, not Apple to so much of an extent, but I would say Facebook, Google, this entire bunch of web-based, or I would say web-first services that emerged just after the dot-com bust in 2001, 2002. This was a term initially only used by the developer community, right? People who were using, I mean, sorry to get a little technical here, but some people who were nerds in the early 2000s remember the LAMP stack, right? Linux, Apache, MySQL,
Or
PHP.
the geeks, so-called the geeks, the tech geeks.
Yeah. So, people remember that there was this new kind of way of writing code called AJAX, asynchronous JavaScript, that, while your server was talking real time, your page would upload. And that's why Gmail suddenly looked so different and so nice compared to Yahoo. So there was that whole, generation of websites and services and later mobile apps that were built on this tech stack, and that was called Web 2.0. The thinking now in tech circles is that the logical end we've seen in Web 2.0, where some of these companies really became massive. We're talking about $1 trillion market caps now, because it was a winner takes all kind of ecosystem. If enough people came onto your platform, you won. Nobody cares who's the number 2 social network or the number 2 messaging app, right? It's big winners because you need to get everybody onto your platform. And the downside, of course, as we saw with many of these issues on political, say, election mismanagement or misinformation and a number of these other things that arise, is that these closed systems lead to these kinds of problems. So the future that people are envisaging with Web 3.0 is that you take the best of Web 2.0, but allow it to be, I would say, not just stuck on one platform, but in a metaverse of different independent platforms. I mean, see, this metaverse term is a bit overused now. Everybody's using it, so nobody knows exactly how it will pan out. But in ideal world,
it's all over.
Yeah, in an ideal world, we are thinking that, I'll give you a very simple real world example. When TikTok got banned, for example, not only did everybody who was big on TikTok in India have to restart from, in many cases, from scratch on newer platforms, or, switch to Instagram. They also, it was very hard, and I know this because it was a real problem for Qyuki, a tech problem we had to solve, which is that technically you as the creator own all the videos you've uploaded onto TikTok for the last 2-3 years. But now that the app is blocked, you have to go through a VPN, access your account. Then, there's no easy way to download all the videos in one shot. You have to, video by video, download them, remove the watermark if you need to, because technically that content is yours. It was a pain, right? Migrating from one platform to the other. The hope is that in theory, the metaverse will allow you to seamlessly migrate your followers, your likes, your avatars, all your content belongs to you, and you seamlessly migrate across 5 platforms. So in theory, you could take your entire Insta following onto a new platform from day one, and it will all be verified that, this is the same guy who's big on Insta. Now he's come on to TikTok, or he's moved on to Josh, and, entire followership stays intact. So it's a very early baby step in ensuring that all these platforms eventually become interoperable. And it's very interesting for the creator economy, because in theory, then the creator is at the center and not the platform. I don't know, Sagar, that sounds right?
No, I think it's perfect. And I want to take a layman's take to it, right? The way I look at it, the way I look at it is that, when Facebook kind of came about, right, it was good enough for Facebook to say that, hey, you know what? Put your content on my site and I will make it reach to millions of people. It was okay to say this in 2005, 2007, right? And people sort of gave their content on these platforms and multiple platforms, and they became popular. They became
almost for free.
Yeah, for free,
for
right?
Free,
but the great thing was this platform brought so much distribution for you, right? And that was really, from my point of view, the Web 2.0-ness of it, right? From a layman's perspective or from a creator's perspective. Today, the way I look at it is that the platforms which were really big around Web 2.0 days have really become big, and they all are major players in the segment that they sort of run. Right. So if you look at Instagram, it is a clear leader in what it does. Facebook is a clear leader in what it does. Twitter is a clear leader in what it does. Right. But today, just giving space to a user is not good enough. Right. You need to give a framework where, as you can realize, that all of these platforms don't allow you to own the customer. Right. The customer is not mine. Right. If you're on YouTube today, you can't get in touch with the customer. right? And as the creator ecosystem has evolved, it's very important for this creator to have access to the customer, right? And I think in Web 3.0 days is going to be very, very important for platforms, which are the platforms, to connect the customers and the creators together and for them to start evolving their relationship. I think NFT is a great way where you're going directly to your customer and sort of doing a smart contract with him. That's step one. I think there are going to be many, many steps in this, and people are going to evolve in a big way in this. And I think that's why the future looks really interesting. I think today, the way we look at a creator, I mean, just from an entertainer to an entrepreneur, I think that is the shift that is happening. And we've always looked at this creator as an entrepreneur, right? Who can pretty much, it's not just he's entertaining you, but he's also making you aware of so many things, right? And he comes into your stream literally every day. So that influence is really important. And I think people will start looking at influencers in their little categories and start transacting because of them. And I think that is going to be a very interesting future.
Very interesting, and I'm sure Qyuki will tap in like always when the revolution starts. But sir, Sagar sir, I've seen you work with the Qyuki as a company work with so many creators. Creators who are not essentially very understanding of the global changing landscape, etc. But they, by the sheer might of their content, are very popular, right? So. But in India also there's a notion that कि आप picture में कब दिखोगे, आपका hoarding कब लगेगा. Though it's a digital economy, there's a strong notion when it comes to how popular you are until you are seen in maybe a Bombay Times front page. Just to put things into perspective, because the generation is still in a cusp. People who have seen the power of traditional and now going.
Hang on. I'm glad you asked this question because.
So I've finished the question. So do you think, sir, the creators who are creating content for the digital mobile economy are trained enough or are capable enough or do they understand enough to make it big, say in the big OTT TV or film spectre?
It's already happening, man. It's already happening. First,
please continue, sir. Sorry. Yeah.
It's already happening. Quite frankly, dude, every platform that emerges will always produce a superstar. Okay. When we had Doordarshan, we all know it created a superstar, and we all know who that superstar is. When cable TV happened, it created a superstar, right? Digital will create a superstar, right? I can be very, very, I mean, obviously in the West, they're making statements like the next president is going to be from TikTok. I'm not going that far. What I am trying to say is that, the next big star is coming from short format content, right? Wow. Because that is what people are consuming. And I think it's for companies like us, which kind of help creators grow, to create, like what you said, to train, to make sure that they're good enough to step up to the next level. I think it's very important for companies like us to take those steps and make it happen. And I'm it's already happening, right? Yeah. Already people are doing, like if you, Bhavin has done a OTT show on Balaji, Faizu has done a show, right? All of them are moving towards a digital, like from digital moving towards OTT. I'm sure some of them are going to move into films also very soon. Yeah. And we will back our creators all the way, because I think it is very important at this point in time for that success to also come.
Yeah. So you think, the fact that they're already commanding such a huge fan following base, if someone signs them, hypothetically, they already bring so much of, say, ticket sales probability because they reach out to millions of audience, right?
Well, I don't understand the film business too well, but one would assume that if you have 30 million...
You have to click on that book my show button so that you buy the ticket. So, this swipe up would help.
I'm saying if one assumes that if somebody has 25 to 30 million fans, right, and they put out saying that, hey, here's my trailer, come buy a ticket, one assumes that the conversion would be pretty decent, and one assumes that if the conversion is decent, that filmmakers want to cast them in their films if they are trained enough and push them around. So I think I see that space very clearly, and I think it's going to happen.
Absolutely. So, we have spoken on the new age content creation space. We have spoken on Web 3.0, but I like to ask both Abhi sir and Sagar sir something which has impacted all our lives, business, personally, the pandemic times. That's a full reset. I mean, no one thought that would hit, and it's still around. because we are planning events. We thought we would do this ground, and suddenly Omicron or something comes and you go virtual again. So what has been the pandemic lessons for Qyuki? If you can talk about the challenges, learnings, managing
Hi
creators,
Pehel,
etc., and how it has changed the
hi
overall
Pehel,
business outlook at
जन्मदिन
Qyuki,
की
and what's
ढेर
going to be
सारी
the next growth
शुभकामनाएं।
phase of Qyuki. If Abhi sir, you can take first, then I will come to Sagar sir. Yeah.
जन्मदिन की ढेर सारी
I
शुभकामनाएं।
think initially, just like the rest of the
बस
world,
आपके लिए तो मैं
we were
एक
in
ही
a
चीज
sort of a
कहूंगा,
wait and watch
गाते
mode.
रहना।
It was very obvious that some
हाय
very big
पहल,
revenue
जन्मदिन की
streams like
ढेर सारी
events would
शुभकामनाएं।
be out of question for the foreseeable future. We were thinking
All I will
maybe
wish
6
for
months
you
to a year
today,
back then, but when the second wave happened, we realized that it may be even longer till 2-3 cycles of the slightly more dangerous variants get out of the way, and people are saying eventually this might become endemic and mild. That's what we are hoping. Fingers crossed on the whole Omicron thing. So yes, the events aspect and the live show and the physical aspect of it definitely took a hit, continues to take a hit, which is sad. A lot of traditional media industry has borne the brunt of it. I would say second to maybe travel, tourism, and hospitality. It's after those guys, and obviously aviation and related industries which were hit the worst. Traditional media did take a brunt of it. Luckily, within media, the one sector which was able to function quite smoothly and in fact saw massive spike in activity was the digital side, fundamentally because a lot of the work can be done remotely. It was challenging initially for us to do even basic things like coordinate shoots completely online, coordinate with so many different people, whether it's even giving creative briefs. You tend to underestimate how much can happen in person from a creative point of view, which is not very easy to do on Zoom. This is not code at the end of the day. It may be digital, but it's still got a very big creative layer on it. So early days were hard, but then, as after the first 6 months started tapering off, we saw that the amount of inbound interest from brands and advertisers into the space, and Sagar can elaborate more on that, suddenly went through almost a tsunami, right? It was not, of course, as great as EdTech, which got so much interest because poor kids were forced to stay at home, and it was a forced change 4 or 5 years earlier than it would happen. But it was still, I think, at least a 2 to 3 year jump in terms of adoption, because everybody suddenly realized that, hey, you can actually execute fairly decent, creative briefs remotely. And when you don't have a choice and you try something and you find out that it's not as bad as you thought when you give up a little bit of creative control, I think that's been the great, plus point for us in terms of the acceptance of, giving up creative control from, say, the branded content side and working with creators, working with bottom-up content has been quite interesting. I think that for me would be the big change that's happened in the pandemic.
Sagar, if you can elaborate, sir.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree completely with Abhimanyu. Personally, as a company, we went through a very hard phase during the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic itself was quite disruptive. To add to that, us losing our founder, that is Samir sir, right? It was a very tough period for us, and it took us literally till, that incident happened on 14th of June, right? And it has taken us, it took us 3 to 4 months to find our feet, right? And during that time, I think the space was really sort of catching up. And what we really saw, and I would just like to expand on, how obviously there were lots of revenue lines which were shut, including one of the largest revenue lines at that point in time for us, which was our own IPs, our own shows, our original content, which could not get produced because we were not on the floor. We were not shooting, crowds couldn't come in. Other revenue line was obviously events, and that was a fairly large revenue line for us. But I think October of that year, we started seeing an uptick in revenue when it comes to people engaging directly with influencers. And the good news is that we were sort of managing the largest pool of influencers in the country. And at that point in time, it really started shifting in a sense. And I think, we've been fairly lucky that we've done, just on the influencer side, we've executed full scale campaigns for large brands, right? Where you're pretty much doing it the old school way, right? Where you're doing a creative, you are sort of lining up the entire strategy But the fun part is it's not happening on TV. It's completely happening on digital and on an influencer's page rather than a brand's page, right? That is the shift that we've seen. And now once it has sort of moved up and people have seen a lot of brands engage this way, today you are seeing a very, very healthy number of brands approaching influencers directly to sort of do lots of tactical as well as strategic sort of ads with them. I think it's the space is really growing, and we would have seen easily. It would be safe to say about 80 to 90% bump up in revenues in that revenue stream itself.
You see, Qyuki focusing more on what worked during the pandemic time, or it's going to be a hybrid model, or you think branded content or IPs will kind of come? So what do you see, say, for the next 3 years will be Qyuki's focus when it comes to, the business philosophy, keeping in mind that pandemic is still there?
I think the way we are looking at it is that, now that people have started moving about a little bit, right? We don't see, I think brands have really, seen this style of advertising a real successful model, right? And I see them doing more of the same. It's just that how well we can solution them, how quickly we can, engage with them. And at the end of the day, it's about engagement. It's about quality of sort of viewership. It always starts with reach and it always ends with engagement and other metrics. Like today we are, when we started this, we were not looking at anything but reach. But today we are also talking about conversions, right? And I think any field will mature like that, right? So we are seeing that as clearly a strong part of our revenue. I think we look at other revenue lines like IPs, which we were always known for and are very strong. And I think in this digital age, if you can say like something like a Jamin, which is about 4 years old, and we've done 3 seasons of it, and here's the 4th season, right? These kind of trusts and brands that you are able to build, I think will always, last a long way. So I think we'll always stick, and whatever is in the future, right? That's what Qyuki's strategy always has been. We always sort of, are where the creator needs to be, right? So if we have a creator, see, our role is to be an evangelist. It's not really a model, right? Today, if short format is working, we will be pushing our creators to do more short format, which is what we do. Today, if you say that NFT is working, we will push our creators to do more NFTs, right? Our job is to evangelize to creators that how can they
catch on the trends, the trends,
maximize their earning potential, and we will continue to do so.
Wonderful. So, when we are talking about digital entertainment, so live audio chat rooms is something is also catching up. There are so many platforms where live conversations are happening. So, Avi, if I can come to you, do you think brands and content creators leverage live audio chat rooms for fan engagement? How can they do that?
I must say that it's a very interesting experience because it's different. It's not as boring as, say, logging onto a conference call, but yet it's not as chaotic as a live stream can get. So I think it's this very interesting mix between, say, listening to a podcast, but sort of with that little bit of element of real-time feedback. So if every time there's a new medium, there's some people who exploit it much better than others. So if creators and artists and even communities can learn how to use it well, where you do something which is almost like a quasi podcast. Like imagine if we were doing this entire chat on audio on one of these live chat rooms. We have our round of Q&A for maybe 45, 50 minutes, and then you throw it open to the floor, or even 10 minutes in or 15, 20 minutes in, you go to the room for questions and you queue up people and you let them ask stuff in real time. So it's, I think, a very interesting format, works really well for certain kinds of communities and certain kinds of topics. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of this as more and more platforms integrate this into their features and into their offerings.
Wonderful. So I think we have had a wonderful conversation. So on a parting thought, Sagar, so you have any final points for everyone who's watching us?
This is something which I say all the time. There's never a better time to be a creator, right? It's the best time you could ever be born, with a camera, slight knowledge of editing, and this is the best time to be a creator. You don't need to work. You don't need a job. Put your content.
Come to Qyuki. Start creating and come to Qyuki. They'll help you grow.
Come to Qyuki, but this is where it's going, right? Yeah. People have figured out a way to monetize whatever content that they have on different streams. And I think if you have that little spark in you, this is the time to be a creator.
Absolutely. So, Avi sir, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, the fact that we are not doing this chat on the, Creator Economy Summit sponsored by a large newspaper or a large TV channel, and you are the media mogul now. Was it possible 20 years ago for, you to start your own media organization and your own brand in a very focused niche area? A newspaper or a TV, or a traditional sort of format would have said, no, it's too niche an area. Maybe you can do a trade magazine at best. And here we are doing a full-fledged event. I've seen you guys do, high quality video. There's of course the main site as well. So, I mean, that itself is a great example that there's never been a time where anybody with just an internet connection and, even half decent hardware or even run-of-the-mill hardware is able to literally set up their own media company. So exciting times ahead.
It's a growing phase. And thank you, Sagar sir. Thank you, Avi sir, for your time. Thanks you for coming to India Web Fest, and hopeful that next year we'll see you on the ground to have a lot more interesting conversations, and see you again next year, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Enjoyed this conversation, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siddhartha, for that very informative and, of course, very interactive session.